Hello and welcome to this special edition of Mindshare TV. I'm your host, Robert Martellacci, chair of the 16th Canadian EdTech AI Summit and president of Mindshare Learning here at the Mindshare Workspace. We're thrilled to bring you this exclusive sneak peek podcast as we gear up for what promises to be one of the most impactful education summits of the year, October 29th and 30th, hosted at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, the home of Dr. Hinton, known as the pioneer of AI. So, talk about serendipity, and the co founder of OpenAI happens to be a graduate of University of Toronto as well. Today, I'm honored to be joined by one of our brilliant past co-chairs, member of C21 Canada. He's on the Fireside chat, opening chat of the conference, Dr. Steve Joordens, who's an award-winning professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. Scarborough was so great to be alongside him last year, where we hosted a fabulous new facility. Dr. Joordens is a leading voice in digital pedagogy, the psychology of learning, and ethical innovation in education. He's passionate about empowering educators and learners in an AI world while staying true to the human side of learning appropriately. The theme of our conference, empowering human-centered learning in an AI-inspired world. Dr. Joordens, welcome to Mindshare TV. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it's great to be with you here on the day the Blue Jays start their comeback.
I love your positivity. I don't think you would be a psychology professor if you didn't embrace the glass half full and the growth mindset.
Yeah, absolutely, and they got some growth to do. It'll be fun.
We were there Sunday night at the game, so lots. I love the atmosphere around it. The outcome of the game wasn't so fun, but first of all, thank you for joining me. We're excited to have you back on one of the most important panels, the opening fireside chat at this year's summit, where we explore how to navigate AI's impact on education. What excites you most about this moment in time for educators and students?
Well, this will sound kind of backhanded in a sort, but what I love is that AI is blowing up all of our traditional ways of doing things. As somebody who's really wanted to see change and evolution in how we educate for many years, it's been a hard thing to push because tradition is so strong, but AI is really making us have to rethink the way we do things. And I actually, it's stressful. It's a difficult time. It's really stressful on teachers. But I actually think 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to look back on this and say, wow, we had a chance to really rejig the way we do things. And we've got a better education system now than we did before. So that's my, I guess, half full mentality is still there. But that's how I feel towards the potential of AI if we really take the time to think it through.
Thank you for that. And you've long been an advocate for digital transformation in higher ed. How do you see generative AI complementing, not replacing human learning and teaching? I know last year at the summit, you had a conversation with a chatbot and you created office hours, virtual office hours that really was leading edge at that time. How has that evolved?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of anecdotes about Virtual Steve. So first of all, Virtual Steve was created by my postdoc, Adam, who does a lot of the AI work in the lab. Adam Frost, I should call him out appropriately. And one Monday, Adam said, I created a virtual version of you to be up online to give office hours support for students. And at that time, we were like, I don't know if this will be, is this some silly little novelty or whatnot?
Right.
But two
And by the
things.
way, can we mention how many students you have? Last year you had 2,000. How many?
Which is, I think, important to the point. So so I'm around 1,800 and some this year because there's a second section now. so we didn't even distribute that much. But one of the things I'll point to with AI is I think it really, when I look at AI, it allows us to do high touch at scale. That's what we haven't been able to do. So when I think about how we can use AI, I kind of think about that. And I could just give you 2 examples of how students have embraced this Virtual Steve. One is they can ask it questions anytime. What's their favorite time? Noon till 2 a.m. or sorry, midnight till 2 a.m. That's when
Wow.
they're up studying. That's when they're up working. Of course, all of us profs are in bed at that point in time. We don't want to deal with questions at that point in time, but virtual
Right.
Steve will talk to as many of them as want. And, he can have 20, 30 conversations going at a time. And he's there when they want him. And that's really important because their schedules are different than ours. And one other example I think that's really, really cool is I'm showing students how they can use Virtual Steve to test them. So as they study, they learn material, but then they can say to Virtual Steve, "Hey, you know what? I just did a chapter on human memory. Can you please give me some multiple choice questions?" And they can even say, "Hey, my professor likes to use Bloom's hierarchy, and it's those applied questions that I always find challenging. Can you give me
Mhm.
applied questions?" And it will do so on the spot with unlimited passion, or unlimited patience, I should say, and continue to give them questions and let them test their learning. If they came into my office and asked me to do that, I simply could not. I could not generate questions of that quality at that speed. And I would just say, no, I'll make you a little practice test or something like that and give it to the class. But the flexibility these agents have to really go to where the student is and to give them what they need is really impressing me, and it's impressing them. With midterms coming up, this is when we see just the spikes of usage come up, and yeah, that one has been embraced beyond my dreams. And as you know, as I've talked about it,
Right.
spread. We've got instances in the Toronto Zoo now that are using this technology and other things, and it's really kind of heartening to see.
It's fascinating. So I hearken back to a famous quote to paraphrase um, the professor from the 60s.
Malcolm
We
McLuhan.
create,
Oh, sorry.
Dr. McLuhan, uh, we create the technology and the technology shapes us.
Yeah, I think by thinking what the technology makes possible that wasn't possible before. And I'll give you another example because I've really kind of leaned into this. We always have an assignment every year where we try to connect students with original source research to kind of show them how they can get a journal article and how they can go to science to get answers to the questions they have. My intro psych course is very broad. So their assignment this time is to work with AI and find some specific issue in psychology that they like, and to have some conversations with the AI about, what's been done recently in this area. And can you recommend some papers? And then they ultimately get a paper, and they may have the AI help them summarize the paper, but then they have to go in, read it, and ultimately do an oral presentation. That's what their final product is. And so we're teaching them how to use AI to help them learn, not to learn for them, to kind of be a tool they can use at their side as they're learning. And then at the end of that, by the way, and I believe this is a first ever, I'm quite proud of this. It just happened over the weekend. At the end of it, they had to have a conversation with an AI that was doing an oral assessment of their learning. So it was asking
Wow.
them questions about how they found the paper, how they used AI, and then asking them questions about the paper and producing a transcript that now TAs can look at to kind of say, hey, did this student really seem to know what they were doing? Did they really dig in? But now, the point I like to stress is oral assessments are the best way to assess learning. We got away from them and went to multiple choice because multiple choice
Right.
scales, but it's bad. We can go
Right.
back. We can go back to the best form of learning now, I think.
Fascinating. So you're a tech founder, Pure Scholar.
Yep.
How has AI impacted Pure Scholar, and how
Yep.
are you adapting that platform? Because it's peer-to-peer assessment, and now you can do peer to AI, agentic AI
Yep.
assessment.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can now take a technology like this and bring
Mhm.
AI in. So Peer Scholar is all about teaching students how to give feedback to others, and then also how to learn from feedback. That growth mindset. How to get past the
Right,
emotion and embrace it. Now, the problem, of course, so that we can have AI all through that. Where we've
right,
started is with this assessment at the end, because the big problem we see is that every step of the way they can use AI to do that for them. If they have to give feedback, they can give the AI the student piece. It can produce the feedback, and so there's the possibility of them going through the process, a process designed to really enhance their skill learning, but for them to learn nothing if they don't do it right. that little assessment at the end that we're now adding as a fourth step. Okay, you went through this. Now we're going to ask you all about how you did this and et cetera. That encourages them to do that first process right. So the AI becomes sort of an additional reflection piece, but it
Right.
also becomes a critical thing for saying, hey, we don't want you to sacrifice your own learning for AI. We want you to enhance your learning with AI. And having that piece there makes the whole peer scholar process continue to work in a world where AI exists. And so, that's one part that we're proud of. We're also, of course, making it easier to set up activities and all the other things you'd use AI tools to do. But I think from a learning perspective, that's the really unique, interesting bit we've added.
Fascinating. What advice would you offer ed techs that are now dealing with this whole evolution at the speed, at an unprecedented speed?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's sort of I see two ways people are targeting AI. And one is to take some process that currently exists and make it more efficient or easier or whatnot. Say to create a peer scholar activity, we can have an AI that walks you through that. That doesn't really change the game at all. It just maybe shifts workload and stuff like that, which is fantastic. But what I get really excited about are the things that change the game. Can we alter the way we assess learning and get to a better place? Can we support student mental health better by having it available as they're chatting with an AI? If they say the right things, or a properly set up AI can become very empathetic. And I don't just mean that in terms of being friendly and nice. I mean in terms of being sensitive to things that it's hearing that might suggest, oh, I should maybe bring this up in the conversation, and maybe that's going to lead us to a discussion about health and wellness. The AIs can be where the students are, and can be very sensitive to what they're hearing. And I think they will allow us to support our students and all, both in their learning and in their mental health in ways that we've just never seen possible before. And let me give you just one example about that too.
Sure.
Often now, if we find, like, say they came to my office and I see some sort of mental health issue that I think they should need help with, I will say, go to health and wellness, or go to the health and wellness website. And there's like a wall of links. And now I'm leaving the student to try to figure out what to do. And often that's almost more harmful than doing nothing.
Sure.
What an AI can do is it can know all those links. It can triage the student. It can ask the student a bunch of questions. And I'm more, by the way, playing with that side of AI, not just answering questions, but giving it more agency to ask questions and figure stuff out.
Well,
And then what it can do is it can say, Robert, I completely understand the situation you're in. Many feel the way you hear. Here are 3 resources at U of T, not 50. Here are 3 that
right.
really seem like they fit and would help you in a big way. Would you consider any of these? That's something that was very hard to do at scale before,
Right.
but is now dramatically in reach and could make a big difference in terms of how we're supporting our students' mental health.
Right. And I love your practical approach to this. And so you're known for championing the importance of being human in a tech-driven world. What
Yeah.
does human-centered leadership look like to you, especially in an AI-influenced education system? My niece asked me this question on the weekend. She said, Uncle Robbie, what does leadership mean to you in the age of AI? This grade 12 student.
Yeah.
I think one of my investment banker's sons put her up to that question, no doubt.
I mean, leadership is always tricky, and it's especially tricky in times of change, and that's what we really have here. So I think leadership in AI, one of the things that I've pushed a little bit is you have to learn to balance the traditional with the innovative at this point in time. And what I would mean by that is, let's say I was a board leader in a school board. I would want to identify those individuals within my system, the teachers, the administrators, whoever, who are very innovative and who are embracing AI, and say, hey, I want to play with this. And I'd say, okay, I would give you guys the freedom to play almost in an entrepreneurial way with things, while not insisting that every teacher do that. Like the other teachers, you could say, no, you guys go ahead in the traditional way until that first group develops some really powerful use cases. And you're a big fan of use cases as well. But once they've generated use cases, now you can go back to the more traditional teachers and say, look how easy it is to bring this into your classroom. And it aligns with your learning goals. And this is all you have to know. This is all you have to do. And suddenly AI becomes less scary and less intimidating. And so I think managing that, how to get the keeners on side and pushing your innovation while you're not upsetting the whole apple cart, and then slowly sliding the innovation into the more conservative side of the trade. And that's a hard balancing act. People are everywhere with AI. So when I do that viva voce approach with students, I had a student come to me and say, the environmental side of AI bothers me. How it's eating all the electricity, etc. I don't want to do an AI thing,
Mhm.
and so I had to do the viva voce myself. I had to do that with 4 students out of about 1,800.
Wow.
And so that's reasonable, but you also have to respect that everybody's on a different spot on this, and trying
Well
to be a
said.
leader to balance all that is very difficult. Yeah. So here we got the use case initiative. Yeah. You want to
Yes,
speak to that?
and we're thrilled to have you part of the C21 Canada community, and we are on round 3 this year, and it's these are free resources available at c21canada.org. We have a national panel that we're hosting on the 30th of October of some of these actual use cases. What's really cool, and they're K-12 and post-secondary, what's super cool is you can either read the PDF document, or you can watch a video, or you can listen to a podcast that was created in Notebook LM. Talk to me about
Yeah.
some of those tools that really make a difference when it comes to leveraging AI. And talk to me about Talk Lab. I'm going to share Talk Lab next and what
Yeah.
that's all about.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of tools that students just choose to use that I think helps them, like these things that turn a lecture into a podcast. If that's what they're a little bit more comfortable with, you always worry about some information not being captured as well. But for a lot of students, I think being able to present the information in a way they feel comfortable consuming is very good, other than forcing them to do something they don't. For Talk Lab, yeah. Talk Lab has a long story. We were really trying to use AI to deal with the high level of social anxiety that students have. And one of the reasons we think they have that is because they text message so much. They use
Mhm.
asynchronous communication. So everything we do, we want to be a conversation. We want to give them more of that conversational practice. And we're working with Alzheimer's patients, we're working with all sorts of patients, but let's talk education. We're starting to use cases like the following. And we're working, by the way, with people from a company called Tap Vigo. I don't know if you know Tap Vigo, but they're in the education space.
Mhm.
And imagine you had to learn physics. We all read a textbook. We did, but imagine if you could chat with Albert Einstein for a while, and you had
That's
to write
cool.
a report,
That
but you
is
have a
so cool.
full conversation with Albert Einstein, and now
Mm,
this becomes a report that you write, etc. We can bring historical figures to life in history classes.
I love
Um,
it.
there's, there's a case where a company from Calgary has built a full VR space station, so students can go into the space station. But right now they were just walking around. We created Commander McQueen from Houston, who can speak to them, answer questions, guide them as they go through the space station. And so suddenly we've added a human narrator, human guide. Well, not human, AI based, but to this otherwise VR world. So I think the education space we can fill with conversation, which will be great for our students in many ways. And I think it can really make things engaging. I want to give you one other example. We're working with Tap
Sure.
Vigo on an agent called Viola, who we plan on releasing for Black History Month in February. And Viola is basically a Black Canadian grandmother from Halifax. She's a real woman. She's lived through all these things. And if people want to understand what it was like to be like a Black girl in Halifax decades ago or whatnot, they can have conversations with Viola. And suddenly, a lot of
So
the
cool.
Black students feel like they're being represented and they get a
Right.
chance to interact. So I think those sorts of opportunities in education to do human like things, but at scale again, high touch things at scale, can really re-engage a lot of students while also backfilling this communication barrier that I think is so critical to their development right now.
Well said. Fascinating use cases that you've shared with us, Dr. Jordan. So, um, talk to me about the summit and what you hope to garner from it,
Mhm.
uh, connecting with peers and leaders and from across Canada and beyond. We have several countries represented,
Yeah.
between faculty and students. And our goal is to bring together the entire ecosystem of stakeholders to have conversations, to share and learn from each other. I'm a big fan of social learning.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I'm a data driven kind of guy. And so one of the things I'll say is I think there were at least 5 connections that I made at the last conference that have led to tangible projects, that have led to
Well,
things that we're actually doing and, meeting new people. These were all individuals I didn't know before.
very cool.
As one example, we can mention again our friend Dolph de Jong, the CEO of the
Yes.
Toronto Zoo. He saw the virtual Steve, and now we have a virtual zookeeper outside the otter exhibit in the Toronto Zoo, where they'll answer questions about the otters.
That's so brilliant.
That sort of ability to connect with other members of our community and work with them. I think these members are brought together at that conference, at that summit. And then often when we leave, we don't leave, right? We stay connected. We keep interacting with those people. And so I think that's what it really is community coming together and sort of growing, forming those connections, strengthening those connections. And then that makes us better together to go out and make the change we want to make.
With that, I have one final question, but you kind of answered it in your last statement. For those who are on the fence about potentially coming to the summit, why is it essential to attend the Canadian AI Summit now, given this juncture, this critical juncture we're at, this pivotal moment in modern education times? And how would you define that? Dr. Tom D'Amico talked about this transformational period being equivalent to the advent of the book. Dr. Hinton, Professor Emeritus U of T, Nobel Prize winner, grandfather of AI, talks about this being truly the second industrial revolution. What is your perspective on where we're at today?
Yeah, so I always go to Thomas Kuhn here, and Thomas Kuhn's notion of the paradigm shift, which he would talk about how the scientific process would go through shifts between, say, Newton and Einstein. I think education is in a full paradigm shift. How we deliver education, how we assess learning, I think all of these things are changing, and we're right in the middle of that. And that's what's uncomfortable, but it's also got a whole lot of potential. And I think that's the time when community matters so much, that, when I'm doing something in my classroom, to hear from a grade 8 teacher, hey, this would really have an impact over here as well. Cool. And then maybe starting to play with that, getting the opportunity to see, what happens if we bring this into grade 8? That's what the conference really, it's such a cross section. It's so many conferences are focused on a specific, issue with a specific group of expertise. This is much more general. We have administrators, we have teachers, we have zoo CEOs, we have, a full mix of people
and students
that are all interested, and
yeah.
students. Yeah. And right. Young entrepreneurs that are pitching their ideas. It's a real mixture that really allows you to form connections that I just don't think you would form if you're, usually staying in the lane of your professional, whatever that professional lane is. It's a chance to kind of step out, have the bigger picture, while at the same time meeting new people, getting exposed to new ideas. You certainly leave the summit every day kind of chewing on things in your head and carrying them with you as you leave.
Well, with that, so grateful for your time today, Dr. Steve Joordens. Any final thoughts to share before we wrap this up?
Well, I think I would just say, let's all look to the optimism. It's very easy to see what the problems that AI is bringing in, but there's also so many opportunities. And I often, I'll argue that by playing with the AI, you start to see those opportunities. And when you do, they start to empower you, even though it's a challenging time. So yeah, that glass half full all over again, I guess.
Well, hopefully the Blue Jays are empowered by your positivity and manifesting a win, as we all are, and fingers crossed on that. Thank you again. That was Dr. Steve Joordens. Thank you for sharing your insights. It's conversations like this that remind us why we must come together on a national education stage, a village, to navigate the future of learning. To our listeners, join us October 29th to 30th for the Canadian Tech AI Summit, featuring thought leaders like Dr. Joordens and other international folks that are coming from across the world to come together and shape the future of learning. With that, my name is Robert Martellacci, proud to be chair of the summit. founder and CEO of Mindshare Learning. And as always, be sure to check out www.mindshare learning to get your latest issue of the Mindshare Report or register for the summit. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.